And welcome back to the program, Andrew Robb. Good morning, Mr. Robb.
Good morning, Paul.
Well, what's your reaction to the news that the Bali bombers have been executed?
Well, I think it might hopefully give a lot of people in Australia a sense of closure, all of those that had some association with the many that were killed in two incidents in Bali. And I do hope that there are no reprisals, though I think we must have quite a lot of confidence in the Indonesian authorities. I think they've done a first-class job over the last 5 years in dealing with this issue.
Well, moving on to the other big news of the day, the Clark government has fallen in New Zealand. John Key from the Nationals. He's promising to wind back Helen Clark's emissions trading and to cushion business more. I noticed one commentator said, even so, New Zealand will be further ahead of where Australia's now at. Well,
in some respects, they've excluded major sectors like agriculture, and so if we brought in a scheme, we'd have major parts of our industry at a competitive disadvantage immediately, even with New Zealand. But clearly it was an issue in the New Zealand campaign. There was a political agenda to rush a scheme in by the New Zealand Labor Party, Labor government. It's done in a way which will possibly lead to jobs and emissions being exported overseas. They've moved, I think, too far ahead of the rest of the world too quickly. It was an issue in the campaign, and it'll be instructive, I think, in terms of how the Rudd government has got to wind back the sort of unnecessary haste and take some measured approach to this so that we get the right scheme in place, not some politically inspired scheme. Do you think, just looking at the result in New Zealand, following on what happened certainly in the United States of America and indeed in Australia a year ago, that there is a mood for change out there in the electorates? There's a strong mood for change. You see incumbency around the world under threat. People they're fearful. I mean, I think in New Zealand there was a lot of merit seen. I spent some time there over the last couple of months. There was merit seen in having someone in charge who's got strong business and financial experience. John Key really benefited from his background because they're in recession and people are worried. People are worried about their jobs, about their quality of life, about the future for their kids, and they are looking for a sense of strong resolve, experience, measured approach to dealing with a very uncertain world. All right, at the end of the week, Kevin Rudd flies to Washington for the G20 summit, but can George Bush trust him after the Australian had an unflattering leaked version of his phone conversation with the President? The American ambassador is diplomatically optimistic.
The relationship between our two countries is going to be necessarily diminished by any particular article in a newspaper about any particular subject. The Prime Minister's office has said that the article was inaccurate. The White House has said that the article is inaccurate, and as far as I'm concerned, it's a closed matter.
Well, as far as the federal opposition is concerned, is it a closed matter?
Well, Paul, vanity is a very dangerous trait, and I think we've seen it in spadefuls here. This issue is not a closed matter, certainly not in the diplomatic community. It is reverberating very strongly throughout the diplomatic community. I think as long as Kevin Rudd is Prime Minister, no world leader will have a fully frank discussion with him on the telephone. And I suspect even the President Obama call the other day, I suspect he let Mr Rudd do most of the talking for fear of seeing the conversation somewhere in the newspapers.
The opposition was calling for an inquiry into the matter. I mean, there's nothing much left to inquire into, is there?
Well, no. The point is, Mr Rudd says there were only two people in the room, himself and a note-taker. Right? If the note-taker leaked the essence of the conversation, that is a matter of great consequence, and it is a police matter. If the note-taker did not leak that material, there's only one other man that it could have come from. It came from the lips of the Prime Minister. And that is another matter of great consequence, because we're talking about relationships with world leaders for years to come, and, you know, the Prime Minister needs to explain what has happened. We need to get to the bottom of this.
When we return with the panel, Barack Obama says he'll pledge the US to a cap-and-trade system to cut greenhouse gases. Where does that leave Australia? And the uplifting event of the century so far came on Wednesday, Australian time.
Whether they supported me or Senator Obama, whether they supported me or Senator Obama, I wish Godspeed to the man who was my former opponent and will be my president.
It's been a long time coming, but tonight, because of what we did on this day, in this election, at this defining moment, change has come to America.
Hello, I'm Peter Burton from State Focus.